It's not in the face! Thank you.
Hello and welcome to Hey, Not the Face with your host, John Nash, and your producer, me, Steffi Haynes. And today we have a 100% Dana White episode. Just what you've always wanted. You always wanted to know what it means to be a man. Isn't that right, John?
Oh, man. I don't know if people can hear how hard I'm sighing right now. Oh.
How the hell are you?
I'm good. Tired. I stayed, the card last night took forever.
Mm-hmm.
It was a long card, and I'm fortunate enough that I think that I broke it up with the Canelo card. It's I think by going back and forth, it helped. I don't think I would have gone through either event alone.
What did you think of all of the smoke and mirrors we got to look at on our 1080p displays that were being shot to us in 16K?
Well, I mean, I can't say. It's hard for me to say because I didn't see the whole. Because again, I was switching over to the Canelo card, right? So I missed. First, I started the card late. I missed the opening two video movies that started the card.
Oh, that started the entire card or the main?
The Sphere, the main that started the pay-per-view, and then the one right before the first fight. Missed those. Barely saw. I saw the next couple, and then so the only one I really paid attention to because it was after Canelo's main event. It was the last video, and the other one seemed kind of interesting, kind of cool. Probably if you're there, much cooler than on. I mean, in some ways, the whole presentation struck me like Epcot Center, Mexico. It was, cliched Mexican stuff, but they seemed like and I'm sure live they're amazing, but on TV they seem kind of interested when you're casually paying attention because you're also trying to see what's going on with the next fights starting on the other card. But I did watch the very last video, and I got a feeling, I heard other people saying the same, is that was the worst one. So it's unfortunate that I tuned in the last one was kind of the most cringe of them.
The one that was before Valentina and Alexa's fight was really nice. But I agree, the last one was the worst one. I thought when you were saying you missed the first two, see, I missed the first couple of fights. So I thought that maybe I had missed some before the start of the event as a whole. And one of the common things that was going around on Twitter was that, they're just saving the good stuff for the main card. And that escapes me a little bit because when you spend $20 million on production and you're worried about pay-per-view buys and you're worried about filling those seats and selling those tickets and everything, one would think that you would sprinkle some of that good stuff throughout the whole card instead of just giving us some funky lighting changes and the ring girls in flamenco dresses, because they didn't even get into the really good ring girl costumes until the main card either. They just had boilerplate flamenco dresses on for the undercard.
Yeah, well, I don't knock because I don't watch the undercard usually, and I miss the undercard. And for me, the pay-per-view is what you're paying for. You're paying all this money for. You want all the presentation for that for the viewers. I'm sure they did that too. I think I think one of the problems they had, and this is me guessing in some ways because I didn't watch the whole thing, because it did look very nice. It looked very impressive, the little glimpses I saw. But I'm thinking $20 million worth, right? That's the question, and I think. But that's feasible considering this was a kind of a rush job. This was not planned like a year in advance. This was, they had the idea. They took the Sphere. We're going to do this. They had to go out and get contractors to come up with ideas and then render and make all this stuff. So they probably paid a premium on like overtime labor for all these artists. And so they probably spent a lot more than you normally would to get the same end result on a show like this. So lesson learned, if they're going to do it in the future, start way in advance, prepping those videos.
I do like the way that they had the cage set up with the two screens on either side. It kind of had a Mortal Kombat feel to it, especially when they had the jungle theme in the background and everything. Some of the visuals were really nice, and some of them looked like they were hastily strung together with AI. Like they had a scene in there that reminded me of that movie Coco, that animated film Coco. And they could have done more with that. There's some that they got just right, some that they could have done a lot more with, and some were just not very good at all, like the last one.
I mean, it looked like a video game. The woman flying through the air. It's like, what are we advertising? A game?
Yeah.
That one was terrible. But I thought, I thought the background was kind of neat when they did the ruins of Chichen Itza.
Mm-hmm.
Although it's Chichen, I guess 100 years ago, because there's still jungle there. That's all cleared out now. So it didn't quite. I'm not 100% certain if that's where it was supposed to be, but that's the pyramid. So, but some of that stuff was interesting. I mean, I would have done the Tulum would have been nice, and the beach or something. Maybe I missed that. Maybe they did do that, but there's it's listen. I don't know how to grade it because I missed a lot of it, and I don't want to undersell it or be too negative because I missed a bunch. But I saw some stuff that looked pretty good, but I'm not sure it was $20 million worth, I guess is what I would say, the money they're talking about. And I'm guessing that part of that was because they had a rush job. They did not have, this was a replacement arena, an event. So they did not have the proper time to go. I'm not saying actually, and I should rephrase that. It's not like they didn't make good content, but the $20 million price tag is probably a little inflated for what we were seeing.
Also, the other problem was the quality of the card to go with that price tag was lacking, to say the least. I feel like that card should have had McGregor in it or a Jones in it. Somebody like, even an Alex Pereira. It just didn't feel like a big card to me other than the special effects.
Well, it felt, that's the other thing. It felt kind of silly that it's a love letter to Mexico.
Sure,
There's really no, especially when across the street is the number one Mexican combat sports star fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the silliness, and the fights also, they all dragged out the decision. I wasn't as disappointed because again, I had another channel to turn to and watch the other, which, and believe me, they weren't all great fights either on the boxing card. Mm. So you were but the good thing is you weren't watching one thing over and over again. You're kind of, tuning out whenever it got boring. But I will say that it's funny too. The two main events were disappointing to a lot of people, but I actually found both of them entertaining in some ways. I thought the Canelo fight, Berlanga, he has really no challenge for Canelo, but he did make it kind of interesting. Although I was disappointed Canelo couldn't turn it up a notch and put him away.
The Plant fight was better.
Yeah, Plant comeback was entertaining, and that's why I missed the beginning of the card. And then the other one was the main event. I actually found strangely entertaining. Merab versus O'Malley.
Well, it was entertaining because Merab was doing all kinds of hijinks. Well,
that's the entertaining part. He was very active. It wasn't like he was just wet blanket. He was very active the whole fight. And there was a sense of danger at time whenever O'Malley almost looked like he did something, especially in that fifth round. But, it wasn't in the end a one-sided beatdown, but it's not like, O'Malley wasn't trying.
Right.
He's just not a guy who puts people away, but he beat the crap out of them.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
so anyways, that was, all things considered, I don't know. I don't think it was a great night either way, just because the fights are the key thing, and it wasn't a super memorable night for like super relevant fights. Although I guess O'Malley and Merab is pretty relevant, but the rest of them wasn't super relevant.
Well, Valentina and Alexa was relevant.
But I'm tired I was already tired of that matchup by the time we got this. Yeah, that's the problem. We've had two of them.
And please don't give us number 4. We don't need it. Just put Manon in there.
We need the rubber match. You need a rubber match to decide it.
Well, that was number 3.
No, there was rubber matches when you break the tie. It's 1-1-1 right now.
Oh yeah, that's right.
You're like,
I forgot about that second one being the split draw. Jeez. I just don't want to see it. No rubber match, please. Put Manon Fiore in there and let's move on. Now, let's talk about Dana here. The first thing we need to discuss is that He's given a bunch of interviews over the last 2 weeks, but there was a big one he gave to Time Magazine. And in that, one of the first questions they ask him is about Noche UFC and what he felt the biggest challenge was going to be. And this is where you come in with your real life job. He said lighting the arena, getting the lighting down was the most important thing and the biggest challenge. What do you say to that? Because you've been in the business for a long time.
Well, I can't say much because I work in post-production. I'm an editor. So in post-production, we see the end result and we can tell what bad lighting is when they do it. But I've worked on set a few times, but not much. And I'm not a lighter. I'm not a gaffer or anything like that. And so my friend's a cinematographer, but it's a whole different business. So I can imagine he might be right. The lighting might be hard because, you got to light the stage where it's going to be. And plus there's the monitors everywhere. But I'm not on set much. So I'm not very experienced in that. So can I say he's lying or not? No, but I can imagine it being hard. It's a difficult skill.
Okay, because he mentioned also that they usually use the center mount monitor drop, and having the one at the back of the arena like that, or at the front of the arena, however you want to view it, having it in one central location, not being hanging in the middle of the arena. He said that was also a challenge. Again, just opine here on that.
Well, I could see it because if you work, they've been doing it probably that way for every time for a decade now plus, right? Probably much longer. I mean, the last time I remember the Connor show in 189 was slightly different with live music as the walkouts, but you had to go pretty tough where you really see a different UFC presentation. Remember when they had the big, huge ramps and stuff with like Ken Shamrock and Tito Ortiz? I mean, where have those things been? They were. I think they're taken away right after that because they didn't want to pay the money anymore for the pyrotechnics. So that setup, they've been. You do a show for 200 times. It is probably hard for them because they probably built everything set up just to be put into place right away. When they go on the road, and now they're like, shit. Now we got to figure out how to reconfigure all this stuff.
Gotcha. He said that he expected a $22 to $25 million gate. And magically, they hit right on that $22 million number, according to their announcement last night, right after the show. And that it was a sellout at 16,024 people in attendance. What is your take on this now that the event is in the books, given the oddities with the ticketing that we have talked about for weeks going in?
Well, I think our guy, Fred Garvin, and he kind of confirmed some suspicion. He didn't confirm, but I think he confirmed that he also thinks my suspicion is correct. You look at the number. If you look at the ticket prices originally set, it should have been like close to 40 million. And it was much lower. And then you look at the way the tickets were sold and put back on block. What it looks like they did, and this probably goes with their WWE strategy as well, is it looks like they take huge chunks of those tickets and either they sell it ahead of time at a discount rate to second buyers or to their sponsors, or give off as gifts to celebrities so they're in presence, and or have probably huge tracks to like Amazon and all the people that were showing up at the broadcasters. But they're taking a large chunk of the tickets off the market. And what that does is, one, it reduces the amount of available tickets, right? So they're closer to a sellout. But with the scarcity, they can now ask for a lot more money because there's fewer tickets available and see if people will pay for that. And if they don't, then they can keep lowering the price. But they're looking to maximize that price. And then with the tickets they're giving away, that if they're giving it to sponsors, it's a way to nurture relationships and get higher sponsorship rates from the sponsors. So you're kind of making your money back there. And then with the celebrities and all these other VIP guests, well, having celebrities makes this a bigger event, so people will pay more to actually go there. So I think that's what they're kind of doing. It's the 16,000 sellout. I got a feeling the number of tickets, they didn't announce the actual ticket sales, right? It's just that there were 16,000 people in attendance, and it was considered a sellout. My guess is that the true number of tickets sold was much smaller than that. I mean, I don't know if it's below 10,000, but several thousand seats were taken off the market ahead of time. So if it was the true sellout that they claimed, it would have been 30, 40 million. But at the same time, that's probably what they were shooting for anyways. They were shooting for 20 some million plus, and they've gotten very good at this. And since Endeavor took it over, they're starting to master the way to drive up ticket prices to the maximum they can get. Why also the tickets they're not selling, monetize them in other ways.
Do you think that the event will be, and I quote, very profitable, as he told Time Magazine, considering the $20 million price tag for production? Do we think that maybe Riyadh season contributed in there and helped lower that, or maybe covered all of it? How much profitability do you think? And I'm not asking you to give me a number. I'm asking you to say it was very profitable, maybe profitable, not profitable, something along those lines.
Well, we can do a couple numbers to figure that out, but
sure.
I'm going to say it's going to be very profitable, just not as profitable as other events. So we know from earnings calls and other Endeavor speakers, special sessions, that they make $20 million per event from ESPN when they hold these pay-per-views. So there's 20 million they already got. We know they spent 20 million on this. They normally spend 2.5, as they talk about, on production, another 17.5 million for everything else. So 20 million. Well, okay, the ESPN Plus covers that. The other expenses, now we can estimate that this is not an event that had massive fighter pay, right? I mean, there was no big name ticket fighters on this besides Sean O'Malley's probably the only one. And he is not getting Conor McGregor, Khabib, or even John Jones. No one's pay like that. The best case I would guess is he's a $4 to $5 million fighter, probably less, but we'll say 4 to 5. The rest aren't getting anything like that. So back in 2016, they estimated what the payout would be for pay-per-views on the average right around now, and they said it would be about 10.5 million per event. I imagine that's about right, maybe a little more, 11, 12 million. So the 11, 12 million, well, the gate covers half that, right? We still have millions left over from the gate after paying for the fighter pay. The ESPN deal pays for the all the production costs. And then on top of it, you have Riyadh's. This was the highest sponsorship revenue ever generated by the event. They announced big part of that Riyadh season. So we got to put that probably around 10 million probably in sponsorship total. Put some wild number like that, and then you throw in international broadcasts and commercial pay-per-views, which is the bars and all the other revenue sources. That's another 10 million possibly, so 20 million. So total revenue for this event was probably 60 million or so, which is what McGregor versus Diaz fight did, which is big numbers back then. That's a pretty successful pay-per-view. Now they blew through 20 million in production, but you put all their other costs, and all their other costs together are not going to total 40 million. So their EBITDA for this event, the company profit's a separate thing, but their EBITDA, their earnings they have left over after their expenses, their net profit for this event has got to be about 20 to 30 million, somewhere in that ballpark. So it's an event that made a lot of money. Now, if they didn't have the production, though, it would have been, even probably or at least a higher margin profitable event. But this event is going to be profitable.
Okay. Dana White mentioned that he had a meeting about the UFC's involvement with a new arena. What is he referring to? To access the bonus content of this episode, you must be a paid subscriber. To do that, go to heynottheface.substack.com and subscribe today.
Ow! Ow! Not the face! Ooh! Okay, the face!